Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment that you immediately regretted? Maybe it was during an argument with a partner, a disagreement at work, or a small annoyance that spiraled into a full-blown explosion. One impulsive reaction can turn a minor inconvenience into a major fallout. The truth is, many of us walk around like emotional ticking time bombs, ready to go off at the slightest provocation. But here's the thing, reacting impulsively isn't a sign of strength. In fact, it usually signals the opposite, loss of control. The real power lies in mastering the art of not reacting. Because when you can stay calm in the storm, you gain an advantage most people never will: the ability to choose your response instead of being controlled by your emotions. So how do you build this kind of control? It doesn't happen overnight. Emotional discipline is like training a muscle. It requires daily practice and intentional effort. But the payoff is huge: better relationships, clearer thinking, and the kind of self-mastery that allows you to navigate life without being derailed by every little trigger. Let's break down some powerful habits that will help you develop this skill. First, the chemical countdown. Whenever we face conflict or stress, our brains flood with chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol. These chemicals push us toward rash, impulsive behavior. That's why we yell, say harsh things, or storm out without thinking. But here's the trick: those chemicals only dominate for a short window. If you can pause, literally count to 5 before reacting, you give your brain a chance to reset. Those 5 seconds are like an emotional circuit breaker. It sounds almost too simple, but it's often the difference between saying something you regret and maintaining your composure. Second, find your roots. When strong emotions hit, don't just ask, "What did they say that made me so mad?" Instead, dig deeper. Why did it affect you so strongly? Maybe it wasn't really the comment itself, it was the insecurity it tapped into. Maybe your frustration wasn't about the argument at all, but about feeling disrespected, ignored, or misunderstood. By identifying the root cause, you gain clarity. You stop reacting to the surface-level trigger and instead address the real issue behind the emotion. That's emotional intelligence at work. Third, resolve your resentment. We all know the feeling of stewing over something someone said or did. At first, it's just irritation. But left unaddressed, it grows into bitterness, and over time, you might even forget why you were angry in the first place. Carrying that kind of resentment doesn't punish the other person, it punishes you. One of the healthiest habits you can build is addressing conflict early and honestly. Speak up, clear the air, and release those feelings before they calcify into something toxic. Fourth, name your emotions. It's hard to manage what you don't understand. When you feel a rush of emotion, it often feels like a confusing cloud of anger, sadness, or frustration all at once. By naming your emotion, literally saying, "I feel embarrassed," or "I feel impatient," you shrink it down to something more concrete. Once labeled, emotions lose some of their power. They go from being a storm in your head to something you can observe, process, and manage. Fifth, manage your stress. Stress is like lighter fluid for your emotions. When you're stressed, the smallest inconvenience feels unbearable. You're on edge, patience runs thin, and you're more likely to snap. That's why emotional discipline can't be separated from stress management. Simple habits like regular exercise, enough sleep, and daily mindfulness can lower your stress baseline, which means you're less likely to overreact when life throws challenges your way. Now, here's where it all comes together. The key to not reacting isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending you don't feel them. It's about creating space between your emotions and your actions. That space, whether it's 5 seconds of breathing, an honest question about the root cause, or simply naming what you feel, gives you back your power. It allows you to respond with intention instead of impulse. Think about how much stronger your relationships could be if you stopped letting anger or defensiveness speak for you. Imagine how much clearer your decisions would be if you didn't let frustration cloud your judgment. These habits aren't just about avoiding conflict, They're about living a more deliberate, composed life. And remember, this is a practice. No one masters it immediately. You will slip up, and that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Each time you pause before reacting, you're building emotional strength. Each time you identify the real source of your feelings, you're getting closer to self-understanding. And each time you choose not to stew in resentment, you're freeing yourself from unnecessary suffering. At the end of the day, not reacting is about reclaiming control. Most people let their emotions dictate their behavior, like puppets pulled by invisible strings. But you don't have to live that way. You can cut the strings, take a breath, and decide, how do I want to handle this moment? That's real power. And once you develop it, you'll find yourself calmer, wiser, and far more resilient than you ever thought possible. So, the next time you feel that surge of anger or anxiety, pause. Count to 5. Ask yourself why. Name what you're feeling. And remember, the art of not reacting isn't about weakness or indifference. It's about mastery. If you found this video meaningful and interesting, drop a comment below and share your experience. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might find this content useful. And as always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.